What if I told you Hollywood once celebrated real crimes openly, boldly, and without shame? Welcome to Pre-Code Hollywood, when the silver screen transformed notorious criminals into legends and made lawlessness look like an art form. But here's the real shocker. Many of these films didn't just imitate crime. They reflected true scandals, real headlines, and infamous cases pulled from America's darkest corners. So, are you ready to step into the shadows and see just how wild those early movies really got? Little Caesar, 1931. Before there was Tony Soprano, before Michael Corleone, there was Rico Bondello, the original cinematic kingpin. Little Caesar didn't just create the gangster film. It turned a whole new kind of anti-hero into a myth. But here's what makes it more than just a solid crime flick. It's built on the real rise and fall of 1920s underworld legends like Al Capone and Dutch Schultz. Edward G. Robinson, with that unforgettable scowl, transforms Rico from a streetwise nobody into a household name for every bad boy who ever dreamed of ruling the night. From the opening scenes, you can almost smell the bootleg whiskey and fear on the city streets. Rico's journey isn't a morality tale. It's a fever dream. He pulls off daring heists, arranges betrayals, and turns ambition into his own brand of religion. The film doesn't flinch at his violence. Instead, it lingers, fascinated as Rico's power grows and his paranoia consumes him alive. There's no softening of the truth. When someone double-crosses Rico, they don't get a stern talking to. They get erased. But beneath the bullets and bravado, Little Caesar channels the raw energy of real headlines. The scriptwriters searched the news for every stick-up, gangland execution, and police raid they could find. Even the film's legendary ending with Rico's desperate mother of mercy, "Is this the end of Rico?" is soaked in true crime fatalism, reflecting the actual downfalls of so many real-life racketeers. In the end, it wasn't just Rico who got immortalized. It was the very idea that crime could be thrilling, magnetic, and for a brief moment, almost heroic. Little Caesar set the stage, and the world never looked at crime or Hollywood the same way again. The Public Enemy, 1931. Step aside, saints. Here comes Tom Powers, the original bad boy who turned being a crook into a ticket to stardom. The Public Enemy didn't just draw from the daily crime beat. It thrived on it, constructing its entire story from the wild, bloody headlines of Prohibition-era Chicago. Director William Wellman wasn't interested in fairy tales. He wanted the audience to feel the rush of the real underworld, and he got it. James Cagney as Tom Powers isn't just a gangster. He's a force of nature, cocky and electric, strutting through a city crawling with speakeasies and back-alley deals. The film kicks off with Tom and his buddy Matt as petty street thieves. But it doesn't take long before they're running with the big boys, bootleggers, hitmen, and corrupt politicians, all drawn straight from the actual organized crime wave that swept America in the 20s. Tom's story could have been pulled from the files of any number of notorious gangland figures. He's reckless, charming, and absolutely doomed. But The Public Enemy is more than just guns and getaways. It's celebrated for scenes that stunned audiences like Tom's notorious grapefruit-in-the-face moment. A move so bold it became a cultural landmark. The violence isn't cleaned up or distant. It's up close, uncomfortable, and disturbingly entertaining to watch. Every punch, every betrayal feels personal because the filmmakers wanted it to sting like real life. And beneath it all is a sense of fatalism. Tom can't escape his choices. No matter how many deals he cuts or drinks he downs, the film doesn't end with a tidy lesson or a heroic rescue. Instead, it leaves you staring at the price of crime as Tom's world falls apart in one of cinema's most haunting final shots. Yet, in true pre-code fashion, there's a thrill in the ride, one that audiences couldn't resist, even as they clutched their pearls. The Public Enemy dared to make you root for the bad guy, if only for a heartbeat. And in doing so, it helped turn real-life crime into Hollywood's hottest commodity. Scarface, 1932. If you thought Hollywood was just making things up, think again. Scarface took the real-life story of Al Capone, changed a few names, and unleashed a cinematic hurricane. Directed by Howard Hawks and produced by the unstoppable Howard Hughes, this film didn't just flirt with the truth. It marched it right up to the spotlight, handed it a Tommy gun, and let the bullets fly. Paul Mooney's Tony Camanti is basically Capone's twisted mirror image, a brutal, cocky thug who climbs the criminal food chain with nothing but ambition and firepower. From the very first scene, you know you're not in Kansas anymore. The city is a war zone. Machine guns chatter and bodies drop faster than the sensors could count. Scarface pulls zero punches. It's all excess, all bravado. Every set piece is bigger, every risk more reckless. There's even a recurring motif, an ominous X appearing on screen whenever death is near, making every scene a suspenseful dare. Hughes was famously obsessed with authenticity. He pushed the violence and chaos to such a degree that censors demanded reshoots and moralizing additions. He complied, sort of, but the wild magnetic energy of the film remained. The connections to real crime are unmistakable. Bootlegging, mob hits, and gangland power grabs all echo the most notorious headlines of Chicago's underworld. Even Tony's strangely possessive relationship with his sister has roots in stories whispered about actual mob bosses. Yet, instead of simply condemning the criminal, Scarface leans in, making Tony's rise almost operatic. You get the flashy cars, the lavish parties, and the chilling sense that crime, at least for a while, really does pay. But it's the ending that stays with you. A final defiant standoff in a hail of gunfire with Tony refusing to beg for redemption. Scarface didn't just depict real crime. It made crime irresistible and made audiences wonder why the villains always seem to have the most fun. In the end, it's less a warning than a dare. Can you look away when the world's burning down? The Doorway to Hell, 1930. Long before Cagney and Robinson became household names, The Doorway to Hell opened up a whole new path for the gangster genre. And it did it with a story soaked in real-world tragedy. Inspired by Chicago's gang wars and the era's endless cycle of violence, the film follows Louis Ricardo, played with haunted charm by Lou Ayres as he claws his way from street thug to crime kingpin. The twist. Louis actually tries to leave the life behind only to find out the underworld never really lets you go. This isn't just movie myth-making. It's grounded in the fate of countless real-life mobsters who thought they could retire rich and disappear only to end up in headlines as cautionary tales. The film pulses with that same sense of inescapable doom. The nightclubs, the smoky poker games, the betrayals. It's a world where every handshake might be your last. James Cagney, not yet a star, even appears in a supporting role, hinting at the charisma that would soon define a generation of crime cinema. But The Doorway to Hell isn't about glorifying the violence. Instead, it focuses on the toll, the friendships turned toxic, the family torn apart, the way paranoia creeps in like a fog you can't shake. Louis' struggle to go straight echoes the real stories of mobsters trying and failing to outrun their pasts. No surprise, newspapers at the time couldn't get enough of these gangland retirement stories. And the film milks the tension for all it's worth. When the end comes, it's not with justice or redemption, but with a bullet and a grim sense that in this world, you're never really free. The Doorway to Hell leaves you with a chilling aftertaste. Real crime isn't just about getting in. It's about never really getting out. Smart Money, 1931. If you ever wanted to see two titans of the gangster world, Edward G. Robinson and James Cagney go toe-to-toe, Smart Money is where the magic happens. But don't let the slick banter and clever cons fool you. Beneath the sharp suits and fast talk, this film draws straight from the headlines of America's wild gambling rackets. Robinson plays Nick Venizelos, a small-town barber with a gambler's soul and a talent for finding trouble. Sound familiar? That's because his story echoes the true rise and all too frequent falls of real-life gambling kings from the era. Nick's journey from barbershop backrooms to big city high rollers isn't just wishful thinking. It's a retelling of how illegal gambling dens, protection rackets, and political payoffs ruled cities coast to coast. The film doesn't dwell on gunfights. Instead, it shines a spotlight on the hustle, the double-dealing, and the thin line between genius and disaster. Cagney, in a supporting role, plays Nick's streetwise sidekick, giving the film an extra jolt of danger and charm. But the brilliance of Smart Money is how it makes the criminal world look both seductive and exhausting. Every win for Nick brings a bigger risk, a sharper rival, and a price he never sees coming. The filmmakers understood that for many in the audience, the lure of a lucky streak was just as irresistible as any gunfight. And they weren't wrong. Stories of real-life gamblers who rose fast and crashed harder were tabloid gold in the early 30s. In the end, Smart Money is a cautionary tale wrapped in a party, fast-paced, witty, and filled with the unspoken warning that in this world, luck is just another way to lose it all. For every jackpot, there's a trap. And for every king of the hill, there's a scandal waiting to make headlines. The Big House, 1930. You think you know prison movies? The Big House established the template before the template even existed. Forget sanitized stagey lockups. This film drags you inside, slams the door, and throws away the key. Inspired by a surge in prison riots and sensational news reports of overcrowded, corrupt penitentiaries, this movie didn't just want to entertain. It wanted you to sweat alongside the inmates. And, believe me, it works. The plot might begin with a new fish, Chester Morris as Kent, tossed in for manslaughter. But what makes The Big House unforgettable is the world it constructs behind those cold stone walls. There are shakedowns, alliances, and more double crosses than a poker game at Sing. Wallace Beery in a career-defining role plays Machine Gun Butch, a character who could have stepped right out of the headlines. His tough guy charm and explosive temper were modeled on actual criminals whose names still echo in true crime books. In fact, the film's notorious riot scene, a chaotic, violent standoff between prisoners and guards, drew straight from real events that shook the American penal system in the late 1920s. But here's the brilliance. Instead of demonizing everyone, The Big House gives its inmates dimension. You see why some of these men ended up here, and how desperation pushes people to extremes. This was groundbreaking at a time when movies were supposed to make you cheer for the warden, not the convict. Audiences were captivated by the claustrophobic tension, the moral ambiguity, and the sense that inside these walls, the line between good guy and bad guy could change in a heartbeat. Ultimately, The Big House didn't just reflect real crime. It forced a whole generation to confront it, unvarnished and up close. No wonder it inspired decades of gritty prison dramas. The only question, would you have survived a night inside? Quick Millions, 1931. What if I told you the American dream sometimes comes wrapped in a sack of stolen cash? Quick Millions takes that idea and runs with it, turning Spencer Tracy's Bugs Raymond into the ultimate hustler, one who's less worried about laws and more obsessed with getting to the top. And here's the twist. This movie's plot mirrors the real-life racketeers who ran America's biggest cities, using brains and brute force to build empires out of thin air. From the opening minutes, Bugs is fed up with playing by the rules. He starts as a lowly truck driver, but quickly figures out that muscle, intimidation, and a little creative accounting are the real keys to fortune. Sound familiar? That's because newspapers were filled with tales of guys just like him. Ordinary men who bullied their way into the upper crust, rubbing elbows with politicians, businessmen, and celebrities. Quick Millions doesn't shy away from the corruption. In fact, it practically winks at it. The movie is loaded with snappy dialogue and moments of dark humor. Tracy's Bugs treats each new scam like a business opportunity, not a moral crossroads. He's a businessman first, a criminal second, and the lines blur until even the audience starts to root for him. The women are glamorous, the threats are real, and the betrayals are everywhere. What's most chilling is how the film makes crime feel like just another form of capitalism, just riskier and a lot more exciting. In the end, Quick Millions is both a celebration and a warning. It shows you how easy it is to get rich if you play dirty, but it never lets you forget how quickly it can all come crashing down. In the America of the early 1930s, that wasn't just a story. It was the front page. City Streets, 1931. There's nothing soft about City Streets. This is a love story with a mean streak. A film where romance and gunplay go hand in hand, and every corner hides another shot at disaster. Starring Gary Cooper as the Kid and Sylvia Sidney as Nan, City Streets draws inspiration from the real bootlegging wars and mob romances that made the tabloid sizzle. At its heart, it's about how crime worms its way into even the most private dreams. The setup crackles. The kid is a carnival worker with a clean conscience, but love drags him into the underworld when Nan's mobster father gets arrested. Suddenly, it's all in, gun running, dodging police, and climbing the mob ladder, even as he wishes for a way out. If 3 on a match, 1932. They say lighting 3 on a match brings bad luck, but in 3 on a match, bad luck is just the beginning. This film is a swirling, breakneck ride through friendship, jealousy, addiction, and most of all, crimes so real it could have come from any police blotter of the era. Starring Joan Blondell and Dvorak and Bette Davis, the movie turns the classic good girl, bad girl trope on its head and dives deep into the dark side of urban America. The story follows 3 childhood friends whose lives take wildly different paths until fate throws them back together right in the crosshairs of a kidnapping plot pulled from actual headlines. The movie's most notorious scenes involve a child abduction and ransom, mirroring the notorious Lindbergh kidnapping that shocked the nation just months before. And Dvorak's character, in a downward spiral of addiction and despair, falls in with a gang led by a young Humphrey Bogart, one of his earliest roles as a ruthless crook. The criminal underworld in 3 on a Match is depicted with a frankness and grit that's rare for its time. Drug abuse, gambling, and desperate deals unfold with the same feverish intensity you'd find in the crime pages. The kidnappers are neither glamorous nor cartoonish. They're reckless, violent, and terrifyingly believable. And the women aren't just victims or accessories. Their choices, both good and bad, drive the chaos. The pace is relentless. The stakes are sky high. And the ending is as shocking as anything on the nightly news. 3 on a Match is proof that pre-code Hollywood wasn't just imitating life. It was holding up a mirror to the city's darkest corners. Sometimes the worst luck is ending up in a story that's all too real. The Beast of the City, 1932. In The Beast of the City, the law isn't so much a shield as it is a loaded weapon. And sometimes the so-called good guys are just as ruthless as the crooks they're chasing. The film opens with a flurry of newspaper headlines and never lets up, pulling viewers into a city where the line between justice and revenge is blurred beyond recognition. Walter Houston plays Police Captain Jim Fitzpatrick, a man determined to bring down the city's most vicious crime syndicate, even if he has to become just as hard and relentless as his enemies. This film isn't shy about its real-life inspirations. It's grounded in the true struggles of police departments during the gangster era, when mob influence was so widespread that some lawmen had to bend, break, or outright shatter the rules to have any hope of restoring order. The script is filled with details drawn straight from contemporary headlines, rigged trials, bought-off juries, and shootouts so intense you can almost hear the glass shattering. Jean Harlow's femme fatale and a cast of dirty cops, desperate politicians, and trigger-happy enforcers round out a city in free fall. The violence is graphic for its day, and the film was so raw that even MGM's publicity department warned viewers it wasn't for the faint of heart. But for all its mayhem, there's a sly sense of humor running underneath, as if the filmmakers are winking at the audience and saying, "See, sometimes fighting crime means getting a little dirty yourself." In the end, The Beast of the City is a dizzying, relentless ride. A movie that doesn't just depict crime, but also exposes the ugly realities behind the badge. It's a reminder that in the wild days before Hollywood's moral restrictions, even the heroes might leave you wondering whose side you'd really want to be on. I Am a Fugitive from a Chain Gang, 1932. Some films punch through the screen and hit you right in the conscience. I Am a Fugitive from a Chain Gang isn't just a crime story. It's a national wake-up call drawn directly from real headlines and the harrowing memoir of Robert Elliott Burns, a real man who escaped from a brutal Southern chain gang and lived to tell the tale. Paul Muni stars as James Allen, a war veteran who can't catch a break and ends up railroaded by the system into hard labor for a crime he didn't even mean to commit. From the opening scenes, you're trapped right alongside Allen, shackled, starved, and working under the scorching sun. The film's details are unflinching. Whipping, hunger, and the terrifying reality that escape means not just freedom, but a life on the run forever. These weren't just movie inventions. They were the daily horrors for thousands of men trapped by the chain gang system in the Deep South. When Alan finally breaks out, every breath feels like borrowed time, and every knock at the door could be the end. What sets this film apart is its absolute refusal to look away. Instead of lecturing about crime, it points the finger at society itself. The corrupt politicians, careless judges, and cruel wardens who make justice impossible. The impact was enormous. I Am a Fugitive from a Chain Gang helped ignite public outrage and real legal reforms. Audiences gasped, critics praised it, and censors fumed, but the truth was out. Sometimes the worst crimes are committed by the very people sworn to uphold the law. In the final scenes, as Alan disappears into the night, you're left not with closure, but with a question. What does it really mean to be a criminal in a world where justice is a broken promise?